My name is Ron Arkin. I'm a roboticist and roboethicist from the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm currently on sabbatical leave at the Queensland University of Technology and CSIRO for a year. I'll be here until June of 2018. In particular, I've been doing work lately in robot deception, in robot ethics, in precision agriculture and very slow robots, in verification and validation, formal methods for trying to guarantee the performance of certain classes of robotic systems, as well too for the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. From an ethical perspective and a legal perspective, lethal autonomous weapons continues to be that one. I've been engaged in the discussions with the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross in Geneva. 4 or 5 years ago we started those sorts of things, and the discussions at the UN are ongoing. I'm anxious to see more and more happen in that space. Many of my colleagues and NGOs are called for an outright ban on the technology. I do not support an outright ban. I support regulation and a moratorium until we can understand that, because I do believe that certain benefits can accrue through the use of this technology in an appropriate regulated way with respect to saving non-combatant lives. So that's the most pressing one in my mind. In Robotronica, I'm involved in giving 2 keynotes. I was asked to give 2 keynotes. The first on robot deception. This is really based on about 10 years worth of work in a variety of different areas, dealing initially with studying trust, trying to understand how a robot could trust a human being. Most often we're concerned with the other way. How can a human being possibly trust a robot? Well, I'm also concerned with how can a robot possibly trust a human being? And that required the development of certain kinds of computational models, such as what we call a partial theory of mind. In other words, the robot has to have an understanding of what it is that you're thinking to be able to trust you. Well, we found that after doing that work, very successful in that, it was easy to recognize that the dual of trust is deception. Any good con man knows that the best way to do a con is to build up trust in the first place, and then you can easily deceive someone. So we use the same kinds of methods and techniques to help a robot create a deceptive situation for other robots and or human beings in a simple game of hide and seek. We later extended that work based on squirrel behavior, the eastern US gray squirrel, which dealt with behaviors that helped hide where it cached its nuts for the winter to mislead and delay pilfering. Then we looked at a certain principle called the dishonesty principle, which is based on the handicap principle, looking at Arabian babblers, which were desert birds in the Negev, and understanding how they sometimes mobbed hawks instead of just flying away when a hawk threatened them, and they did that very successfully. And tried to incorporate an understanding of when bluffing would be good by a robot. Most recently, one of my PhD students finished up her work in other deception, and that's deception for the benefit of the mark, where we lie, in essence, to do something to make you feel better, or to perhaps preserve your life in the case of a search and rescue operation and you were severely injured and you might look like you're not going to make it. And I could tell you that, but that would decrease the likelihood of success. So is it appropriate to lie under those particular circumstances? Ethical frameworks versus Kantian or deontological frameworks would argue that lying is inappropriate under any circumstances. Utilitarian or consequentialist frameworks would argue that it's okay if it improves the overall happiness. So roboticists have to make these decisions when they're building robots. One, are they going to allow them to lie? And then 2, if so, under what circumstances is it acceptable? And this includes military circumstances as well too. Over the course of the 30 years, there have been a few paradigm shifts that occurred, disruptives as well too. There were the initial deliberative architectures that were developed. Then the behavior-based paradigm came around, which is still in use in systems like Roombas and the like as well too, which changed the way we thought about how a robot had to act. Then another 10 years later, probabilistic robotics came about with the understanding building maps of the world and using those to guide navigation and other aspects as well too. And now the interesting things are dealing with perhaps groups of robots working together, although it's not as disruptive as some of the things in the past. You can't predict when fundamental changes in the science will occur, and the next big one may be around the corner, or it may not be. But substantial progress, particularly in the studies of human-robot interaction, have been going on as well too, to get a better understanding of how it is that we relate to each other through robots, and how we can do better with respect to that. Again, I'm generally not an ethicist in that particular space, but I am privy to some of the discussions that are going on in that. And yes, robots do pose a threat to employment, and as it did in the days of automation, did in the days of the Industrial Revolution as well too. How severe is it is unclear. Will new jobs be created in their stead? Absolutely. The fundamental issue is, can society provide a safety net as we move through this new industrial revolution, or this robotics revolution that's occurring? If society can provide that, then okay. If we just turn a blind eye to the changes that are going to occur, then it is quite worrisome. But one could argue that no job is safe, even that of a professor.